everyone. How are we all doing today? Okay, this looks okay to me. Right, let's see. Hi Andrea, hi Jean. Hi Kathy and Valerie, you're all here. Nice and early, it's lovely. Thank you for joining me. Hi Susan. Susan, oh no, you've put the heating on. Oh, do you know what? That doesn't surprise me at all, really. The past couple of days, I've gone out and it looks really lovely through the window. Even when you're sitting in the car, it's really nice and warm. But it's not until you get outside and you realise there's a chilly breeze there that makes it no fun at all. Okay, so how are we? Oh, hi Bonnie. Oh, brilliant. You can hear me and see me. That's perfect. That's good to know. Hi Helen. Hi Mum. How are you all? Kathy, you don't have this stencil or this die. Ah. Well, do you know what? I don't know whether I should admit to this or not either. This is one of Lisa's older designs, or one of the very first ones that she brought out, because let me just look at the number. The layering stencils are number 22. So yeah, this is really early on in Lisa's collection with the layering stencils, and I've had these for, I don't think I've had these from the start. But when I went to pull them out, I realised I hadn't actually used them before. So it's a good way to actually get on and use your stash and give new things a go. And also, when I actually make this up into the card a little bit later on, I'll be using another die that I haven't used before, the Ornamental Lattice. So apologies, while I'm checking with you, I'm just checking that I'm actually live in the group. Am I live in the group? If I'm not, would it be possible for somebody to share me into the group as well? That would be perfect. I'm just having a quick check. I'll go back this way. Let me just check. List. I can see a lovely card from Mary at the top of the group with the spring bloom that is exclusive to the US. So that's lovely. I'm not sure if I'm live in the group. If somebody can just share that into the group for me, then that would be brilliant, and then I can carry on stenciling for you here. So I'm just back to you all now so I can see. Cold in South Wales. Oh, is it, Anne? Oh no, I'm heading to Wales next week. I used to live there. My youngest was born there, not my oldest. I moved there when my oldest was 1, and my youngest was born there, so in mid Wales, and I'm heading back there for 2 weeks next week, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I'll be sure to pack some weather. Oh, hi Tracy, you're new to Leeds Horton. Oh, and you just purchased this one. Oh, that's a stroke of luck, isn't it? Brilliant. And Sue hasn't got this stencil either. Well, they're definitely in stock, because I had a quick check of that before I came online. Okay, let's get stenciling then, shall we? I'm actually doing something really different for me. Many of you who know me, and I'll just introduce myself if you are new to the group. I'm Claire Newcomb. I've been on Lisa's design team right from the very beginning, so 4 years. It's a pleasure to still be here. I come to you every week, once or twice a week, to do the lives and show you the products and how they work, to see them in action. I like to, my favourite thing to do is obviously with the layering stencils and the blending inks. So I like to give you different ink combinations to get you started. Say, particularly if you are new to Lisa's range in the inks, or just ink blending in general. And sometimes we find we get stuck in our own particular favourite colourways and things, and sometimes it's just nice just to have a little push, just to try something a little bit different. So that's what I'm doing today, actually, as well as using these dyes, the Sunflower and Roses collection, for the very first time. I'm actually using a very different colour for me. I very rarely use red. Red is just one of those colours to me that I just cannot make look nice or look smart in my eyes. That's say purely in my eyes. But I see other people using it and it looks fabulous. So it's just there's a little bit of a mental block with red for me. But I'm using it today. I'm using red grapefruit and strawberry Sundae. And I think what I'll do now is a good time for me to pop up this supplies list. Again, if you're new to me in the lives, what I do try to do each week for you is just give you a little list of all the items that I'm using. So you can see the item numbers there and the codes. So I'll just run through the list. I'm using the Sunflower and Roses collection, as you can see. So we have the 3D embossing folder, which does come with the die. And we have the layering stencils. Now this is a substantial image on a 6x6 inch format. I'm also using I'm just putting in the next things. I'm using the ornamental lattice, which is in a huge package, as you can see here. So again, this is a really substantial die. I'm using pretty much all the dies in this time round as well. I'm using one of the newer die sets, which are available on Create and Craft. I don't think they've quite made it onto Lisa's website yet, because all items that launch on Create and Craft are exclusive for 2 weeks, and then you will find them on Lisa's website. Actually, let me just put on the... There we are. Just put on the QR code there to Lisa's website. It's thatcraftplace.co.uk. So this is one of the newer sets here. I've literally just got it this morning. Oh no, why is my camera doing that? Right, I have a feeling that you can all still hear me, but I think my camera has just gone offline, and it's done this morning, and do you know what? I don't actually know why. So I'm just going to try my connections again, because honestly, it's done this morning, and I really don't know why. Microphone's gone mute. You can hear me as well? Yes, because my microphone muted just momentarily. Right, let's start again, shall we? Right, I'll just wait for you all to let me know, or maybe just one or two of you to let me know that you can see me and hear me again. Okay, again. Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Cheryl. Thanks, Jean. Oh, technology, honestly. Right, so where were we? I was just running through, wasn't I, what I was using. So, as I say, I was using the ornamental lattice. That will be the background for the card a little bit later on, because I've been making actually... I'm using an 8x8 card blank, but I'll be trimming it down. So it's going to be one on the larger side of the cards that I usually make today. So the next set I'm using, as I was saying, this is a brand new die set. It's available on Create and Craft. It hasn't made it onto Lisa's website yet, but that's because Create and Craft will have all new releases for a 2-week exclusive period, and then you will start seeing them be loaded onto Lisa's website. And actually, before all the kerfuffle there, I've just put the QR code up in the corner there, which is the direct link into Lisa's website, which is thatcraftplace.co.uk. Okay. And then the other thing, the other set, or the last set I'm going to use in conjunction with the birthday hugs, which is the XL sentiments, I'm just using the Tatty words. I like to mix and match my sentiments. So although this does have the happy birthday sentiment in it, I found that using those 2 words was a bit too large and a bit too busy, and you'll see why later on. So I'm just using a certain section of this on your birthday die from the Tatty word set. So let's put those to one side. You'll see also that I've put a list of colours on this side. Now what I'll do, they would have been on there for you to jot down. I'll put them back up at the end, but also when you want to rewatch the video on YouTube, because this video will stay available to watch under the lives tab for you to sort of dip in and out of. You'll also find in the description under the video a list of the colours that I've used there also. So I think people find that quite handy to have that slide there. They manage to write that down either at the beginning or at the end, and then they can go ahead and sort of enjoy the rest of the video then. Right, so let's get stenciling. Okay, I just realised I didn't get myself a piece of card. So, as you can see, this design actually is really substantial. It's a really large design. And so if you were making a 6x6 card, and I'll just bring in the embossing folder for you here, it really will fill out the majority of that 6x6 card for you. So it is a card in itself. You really don't need to do a huge amount more than that. Stencil it up with your favourite colours and then put that onto the front of a 6x6 card blank with a sentiment, and then away you go. So I'm just bringing that sentiment here, the one that I've die cut. You could even just do that and on your birthday there. I mean, that one doesn't show up so much actually, but you can see there, if you just put a sentiment on that stenciled image, die cut image, and embossed it, it's a, away you go. It's a ready-made card for you. And I think that's the same with all of Lisa's products actually. If you really like the clean and simple way of crafting, which is Lisa's ultimate style, this is really going to be for you. You can dress up all of the designs, of course, and what I'm going to be making today is probably quite elaborate on my for my style usually. So I'm just going to cut this down a little bit. Okay, so the card I'm using, white cardstock, super smooth, no texture on there. This is Lisa's super smooth cardstock. The stencils, there are 8 in this set, and actually on this envelope it actually tells you here there are 8 6x6 stencils, and I think that's actually really useful because as and when you come to tidy up, you can sometimes just lose track of these things. Okay, so let's get going. I'm going to make sure that my card is secure in place against the top edge of the Ultimate 2 and along the pegs. Now also you'll see that I generally use my Ultimate tools with the pegs down the side, because what will happen as I stencil, the image is the right way around for me to see and also for you to watch also, and so it just makes that clearer in my mind, and makes it easier to choose colours and see the image develop. Now a lot of people will use it this way round with the pegs on top. That is entirely up to you, and it's personal choice. And I've even been known to turn it right round this way and use it with the pegs on the bottom. It really is personal choice, but because it is so portable, then obviously you can move it to suit. So don't be afraid of adjusting things to suit you. Right, so the first stencil I'm using then, let's actually get going into this. It's a floral stencil, so Woodland Moss, my general go-to for all foliage. It's my favourite colour. I do layer it a lot with other colours, and there's been other videos where I've given you my other colour combinations and my my thoughts on what colours layer really well over it to give you different shading and things. So it's all personal choice, isn't it? And certainly I'm not telling you to do it in a particular way. I'm just letting you know what I find works for me, really. So what I'm doing, Woodland Moss, I'm using the larger stencil brush, or blending brush should I say, and just going all of that and just giving a really light layer over every one of those apertures there. And then I'm going to come in with some garden sage. So I'm using a stubby brush because that's what I have available in this colour. And I'm just going over again. So I'm just changing the colour a little bit. I'm not putting too much colour over the top, but I'm just going over with the garden sage, and that will just alter the colour a little bit. And you'll find that you'll have a certain amount of ink put down more on certain areas, and for this layer that works really well for me. I don't, for this first layer on leaves in particular, I tend not to go with a uniform layer. I just put that colour down, and I'll just show you what I mean. You'll see that some of the leaves are slightly different colours. I've put more garden sage down in certain areas than I have others. And I think that just gives you a really nice blend and different colours. I mean, nature isn't uniform, is it? You have a whole host of different colours going on. So with that very first layer down, I know I've got my leaves down. So now I will come in and add a little bit of shading. So I'll come in with a smaller stencil brush, picking up some Woodland Moss, and this time I'm really only going to concentrate on the tips of the leaves. Now the way that I do this, if you look at the stencil, the florals and the brightest colours are going to be in the centre part here. So all of the tips of the leaves that are closer to the centre are going to be darker, because you've got the shadow of the flowers to make them darker. Does that make sense? And I'm explaining this more perhaps to the newer people here who are a little less familiar with the way that I stencil. And we're all aimed usually when we stencil and lay ink down to get those shadow effects and whatever, and it can be really confusing. It's the same when we're using alcohol pens and things, if you think about the light source and whatever, but that all gets really confusing. The way that I look at it is, where are my flowers? Because the flowers are going to be closer to you. So everything underneath the flowers is going to be in shadow. Yeah. So where are the flowers being, and what part of the leaves are closest to the shadows, or closest to the flowers? And it's those areas that are going to be the darkest. So what I then go in and do, I use my smaller stencil brush and just put a little bit more ink just on the base of those leaves. And you can see here, I will probably blend that just a little bit more, but I certainly won't extend that intensity of colour out to the edge of the leaf. Now, again, this is just the way that I do it, and this is the way that helps me get a really nice shaded and blended look, particularly if you're using just the one colour. So I shall do the same with all of these leaves here. So basically what's happening in effect is that all of these apertures are going to be two-tone, because we're going to have slightly darker tips to them than to the outer edge. Okay, so apologies if you're if you watch me all the time and I'm repeating myself, but as I say, I mean we do get new followers to Lisa's channel all the time, and new people picking up layering stencils for the first time, new people new to blending as well, new to blending inks. And you can see each time that I'm not picking up a huge amount of ink, and before I go anywhere near the cardstock through the aperture, I'm taking off the majority of the ink onto the stencil material, and then I use this as a palette because the ink stays wet enough and movable enough from the plastic on through to the aperture. And then once I get to a point, you can see there's a lot of ink on my stencil material here. It's that I use to blend into. Okay, so that's just the first stencil, and I take that away. You can see that there's an awful lot of blending, and you can see like here, the difference between here and here is the amount of garden sage that I've put on. So that's how you can get your different tones of green. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And I probably spend more time on the foliage than on each stencil than I do on most of the colours, to be honest. Maybe it's my bias, maybe that's what I prefer to. So stencil number 2, we're coming in with the flowers. So this is the opportunity for us to add some colour. Now, this set is the sunflower and roses. So I've sort of gone traditional with those colours. You can turn it on its head completely, and looking through the design team samples, I think back in when this was launched, Natalia done one with blues and purples and it looks amazing. So, you know, play around with your colours. So for here, I'm using red grapefruit, and I'm using one of the smaller blending brushes. And again, I'm picking up the ink, not too much, and I dab the ink on initially, taking off the most of it onto the stencil brush, and then in large circular motions around the outside of the aperture is how I begin to add my colour. Now I'm working around in circles here on that aperture, and I started off on the stencil material around the outside before working into the centre. And by working onto the stencil material first, you're taking off that initial blot of colour that you will struggle to blend out, because that will just stay as it is. If you blend onto the stencil material first and then move on to your cardstock, you'll have a much smoother blend. So I'm doing that with each of these larger flowers here in particular. So working round and round onto the stencil material initially, and then working into the cardstock. And then I will leave an area in the centre, which is a little bit lighter, because that does give you an element of shading again. So I'm working all the way around on each of these apertures. Now these smaller ones I will work just a little bit different. I will still work off the stencil material first, but I'll just sort of stroke up into the direction of that aperture, like so. There we are. And then once I'm happy with that, then I can work round and round again. And you continue with this motion, round circular motion, and picking up ink until you've got the amount of colour that you want through the aperture. Now, don't worry about this. This will be cut away at some stage. So stencil number 3. Again, we're bringing in the details into the rose here. Now, initially, I'm going to do exactly the same thing with the red grapefruit. Pick up a little bit of ink and come round into, in circular motions, into that detail there. But then what I'm going to do, I'm going to swap to the strawberry Sundae. So I'm going to start bringing in a different shade of ink. And I'm picking up the ink and putting it onto the stencil material first here. You can see there's a lot of colour there. And instead of going in circular motions this time all the way round, I'm making my circles smaller, but I'm just working at the bottom of the flower, the base of this rose. And what that is going to do is make the bottom of this rose darker than the top. again, it's all about creating those different layers of colours and different sort of shadow effects, blending effects. So I suppose you could call this a bit like an ombre effect. The bottom of the rose is darker than the top. Now I will just brush my stencil brush over the rest of that, because obviously we do have stencil design here that we do want to translate onto the cardstock underneath. But it isn't going to affect the fact that I've got this darker colour at the bottom here. Now I will do the same with these flowers, these side buds here, like so. Now before I move on, I'm also going to be using the Rhubarb Jam as a shading colour. Now if you put this Rhubarb Jam, you see how strong that colour is with a small stencil brush. If you put this over a red, it's a really nice shadow making colour. It really gives a lot of contour, and it makes the red a little bit pinker, but it also makes it an awful lot darker. Can you see the shade or the graduation of colour from the bottom through to the top there? Now I will just add a little bit in the centre of this rose here, because obviously the petals are going to be more tightly packed, so I'm going to put a little bit more into the centre, like so. And again, this is using Rhubarb Jam over this red. It's a really nice way just to create a little bit of contrast there, but still keep the same colour family. So when I pull that away, you can see just how gorgeous that colour red is, and it looks slightly redder, it looks slightly pinkier when I'm looking at it here. So stencil number 4, we bring in a lot more detail again. So I'm going to continue with this larger rose with the Rhubarb Jam, because that's the layer of the colour that I've got to. At the moment, I'm just going to ignore these two flowers at the bottom here. So I'm going to come in with the Rhubarb Jam. The majority of the ink is going to be on the lower areas of the design, and then just use what's left of my brush and on the stencil material to come up into these higher areas of the stencil, like so. So you do use all of the ink, but you concentrate on the areas that you want dark first, and then you just move that up. Okay, so coming on to these flowers now, they've only had one layer of colour, so we need to go back and continue with the way that we lay the colours up on the rose. So I've come back to my blending brush and the red grapefruit and just put that layer back into there. Now I'm just checking my stencils, and we don't have any more stencils for these two smaller flowers. So what we need to do is just bear that in mind now and try, I mean this is entirely up to you, try and bring the colour up to so it's similar to this larger flower. So I've just worked onto the red grapefruit there just to give that stencil detail onto the flower. And then just to make it a bit more cohesive with this larger flower, I'm going to come in with the Rhubarb Jam again, but instead of picking up any more ink, I'm just going to use the ink that's on the brush to start with. It may be that you need a little bit more, because sometimes your brush holds more ink than you imagine. So I do need a little bit more colour. I've just picked a little bit up and I've put it onto the stencil material first, and I'm just going to tip that into this side flower here. So we're going to have a little bit of Rhubarb Jam at the base of these details here. Now this flower, I'm going to go straight into the centre here and work in circular motions outwards. I'm just going to pick up the rest of the Rhubarb Jam that may be on the stencil material and work with what's left on the brush, and just work that with a good bit of force, you know, in circular motions in the centre of that flower, and that will be enough detail to really enhance that flower like that. You can see now how these flowers do look part of the same plant as the one that we've got here, because we've used the same colour ink on them. So stencil number 5, completely different change. We're coming into the sunflowers, and I will be using yellow. Why not? Because I think the red and yellow look beautiful together. So blending brush again. I'm using the Juicy Pineapple. So again, I've picked up the ink, take off the majority of it onto my stencil material first, and then just go round and round the aperture. So half on the aperture and half on the card initially, just to make sure that we've got that really nice smooth blend going on. And I'm just picking up a little bit of ink each time. So we have that going on. And you will find naturally, actually, that the outer edges of your flower will be darker. It's just that thing where the brush tips over the stencil material. It creates a more solid line of colour, which I think is brilliant. I think it's a really nice effect. So I've added the colour that we needed there. You can see how that yellow looks lovely with that sort of pinky red. So stencil number 6, we have the detail of the sunflower here. So I'm picking up a little bit more ink, and I'm doing exactly the same. And I'm just working around the outside, so colouring basically the tips of the flower more than anything. I'm just coming in with the stencil brush now, because I do want to make just the edges, or the tips, outside edge of this sunflower to be darker than the rest. So I'm not putting the colour into the centre, and I'm just tipping that colour into the edges of the sunflower there, and just go round and round, because that way you get a nice smooth blend. But you will see now when I take this away that the centre of the flower is still really bright, and the outer petals are darker. So stencil number 7, we have the detail coming in on the sunflower, and to do that I'm just going to use the red grapefruit. I'm not going to pick up any more ink. Again, I'm going to use what's left on my brush. I'm just going to come into the aperture there, and you'll see in a second, and I should do the same with these flowers here, you'll see in a minute just how much ink that this brush can hold. As you say, I've not picked up any extra ink there, but by taking that away, you've still got more than enough colour to add the contrast to those yellow flowers. So this is the last stencil now, and this is the stencil which adds all of the detail, the centres of the flowers and extra shading onto the leaves. You can see through the stencil material where your flowers are and where your leaves are. Now, if you look on Lisa's packaging, the darker green relates to stencil number 8, and you can see that the green has been layered onto the coloured flowers and onto the leaves as well. So if that's what you wanted to do, and if you're new to this and you find it easier just to use one colour per stencil, then that would absolutely work. But because you can see through the stencil material, you can see where the colours are, so you can start introducing different colours onto the one stencil. So I can see here that the flowers are sitting up here, so I'm using the Rhubarb Jam to add highlights to those buds here. I'm going to use Rhubarb Jam to highlight the centre of that flower also. And the sunflower here, I'm going to use the red grapefruit, because that's what I done on the previous stencil and added the details with the red grapefruit. So there I've used 2 colours on the flowers. Now the rest of the apertures on this stencil relate to the leaves, so I can use the green. Now you don't have to, but particularly if you're new to stenciling, it might be worth just using a microfiber cloth and just taking away those red colours before you start adding your green. Actually, I'm lucky I have that cloth. You can just see me just before I went live, Hazel went running off with that earlier. I had to go and chase her and get it back. She was very pleased with herself. Hazel's my dog, for those of you who don't know. Okay, so to finish off the rest of the details on this stencil, I'm dealing with the green for the foliage. So Woodland Moss, I've picked up the stubby brush, mainly because I really like using these. And I will actually go quite dark because I'm layering green onto green. Obviously, I want it to stand out. And because we are adding highlight details, we do want it to go darker. So again, still circular motions. I do that every time I blend any ink. It's actually just habit now, and the more that you do this, you'll find it will become habit to you also. And it's just a really nice way to get that smooth blend of ink onto your cardstock. So I'm just going all the way around. Again, I'm still very conscious that the details at the base of the leaves, closer to the flowers, will be darker than the edge or the outer leaves. Now, obviously, I'm still laying a lot more ink down than normal, but I would still lay more ink down on the lower details of the leaf than I do the outer. Again, it's sort of become habit for me now. Okay, so I can take that away and you can see actually how I've got no more stenciling to do, so I can bring that up for you to see. You can see now that how that last stencil gives you the extra detail on the leaves and it gives you the shadowing. And you can see on this particular leaf here that all the details of the leaves are darker towards the flower and they get lighter, progressively lighter, but still no less detailed towards the outer edges. And that's a really nice way to create some shading on any of your stencil details actually. So now this would be a really nice to die cut. If you're new to Lisa's projects, what I've just brought into now is the magnetic mat. Now this does fit onto your Ultimate and you can stencil onto this also. It's entirely up to you. It does, you would take away the white mat and add this one on the inside, particularly if you're using the Ultimate 2, which doesn't have a magnet built in. You can use that like so. If you do have this, and again, and if you're new to Lisa, when it now comes to the point where you line up your die, it's really useful actually to have a magnetic mat underneath, because obviously it's going to grab hold of your magnetic of your metal die. Okay, so I'll just put the die on there. Pick that up and that die isn't moving at all, is it? Whereas that wouldn't happen on the other mat, of course. But what it does allow you to do, it just gives you that little bit more precision to line up your design with your die. I find it an awful lot easier doing it that way around. You get less control. It's absolutely doable because but I find with me being really clumsy sometimes you can line it up and then you can knock it, or if you're just a little bit unsure and you knock or you reach over to get your tape or your inks or whatever, you know, it's easily knocked again. So if you, again, it's just a really nice way using the magnetic mats if you do struggle to line up your dies with your stenciled images, because we don't want to go to all the trouble of stenciling a lovely image and then not die cutting it right. So what the magnetic mat allows the die to do is to stay in place, which gives you the chance to just then tape that into place before taking it to the die cutting machine. Now I will die cut this for you, but I do have an image already done here. I'm gonna have to go on the other machine. that way now. So we can just die cut this one. It comes away lovely from the cardstock. It's nice to take it away from all the rest of your. There we are. There we are. That's sitting there. That's really, really lovely. It's such a substantial image that you can just get away with putting that onto a card itself with a sentiment or two, and away you go. But what I'm going to do, let me just put these lids back on. Okay. Now I'll just show you the image that I've done earlier on, the difference between the two. One is embossed and one isn't. And I don't know how easy it is for me to show you this. I'll just turn it over and you can see. This is the one I've just done. This is the one I've done earlier. Obviously that has been run through the embossing machine also. So that obviously will enhance all the details that you have on here. So to make the card now, I've got an 8x8 card blank. I've used the ornamental lattice die. Now this is a huge set, huge as in large in size. So you get a lot, or really massive dies actually for your money. Here. Okay. So to start with, I've cut a green frame that is going to sit on the front of my cardstock. So I've used the outer edge of the die and one of these smaller insert dies just to cut out the centre there, because I want to do some 3D layering of this. So to start with, you'll notice also that my card blank is larger than my frame, and what I want to do before I stick anything down, I'm just going to position the frame on the front of the card blank and just make a mark with a little pencil there so I can trim down my card blank. So I know that this will still fit into an 8x8 envelope. And it would just be quite nice just to bring this down to size. Okay. So what I will do now, I mean, I've custom made this card to the size of the frame here, so I will just show you the size that is now. So that works out to be 16 centimetres, which is 6 1/4 inches by 8 inches or 20 centimetres. So it is a custom made card blank, and so the easiest way that I find to do it is just to marry it up to the size of the frame that I'm using. So I've already added my frame pads. Okay. I'm going to go with quite a bit of dimension on this card. It's saying it's a lot more of a busier card than I would normally make, but I think it just seemed to fit the whole design. So excuse me while my head just dips in there. Okay, I think I've got that level. So the centre of the card, which literally is the window that I cut from the frame earlier on, I'm just going to put that into the centre, and I'm just going to put that with no 3D foam. That is going to go straight onto the card blank. Now I'm just looking for my glue. Bear with me 2 ticks. There we are, sorry about that, I'm back again. Left it in the kitchen. Somebody wanted to borrow it yesterday and I forgot to bring it back in. Okay, so as I say, this is going to go into the centre, direct onto the card blank. So using glue to attach that, and you can see now that we have a level of dimension going on there. So it, sort of the centre is recessed. Now to cut the decorative frame onto the top, I've cut this from white card. So I've used the outside frame and the decorative, large decorative die, and again I've cut the window, the aperture from the centre. So we have that green in the centre there. So we can add this. Add the glue around the frame. Perhaps just a bit there. Okay, I won't go too mad on the glue. Let's put that out of the way. So we can line that up like so. Pretty, isn't it? I love this frame. It took me ages to get hold of this one. I don't know why. Right, now I did cut the lattice work for the centre to go in the centre there, which in itself looks beautiful, but I think that just might be too much for this particular design. So I'm going to leave the card blank as it is now, just with those elements of the ornamental lattice. And I can bring in my rose to sit on the top there. Now what I will do, and I won't do this now, I'll do it a bit later, I'll put the 3D foam on the flowers underneath here, but not on the flowers that are sitting on the frame. I shall glue these areas that overlap onto the frame with glue, and everything that sits within this recessed centre I shall put 3D foam. So we'll have the flowers 3D'd onto there. So you can see it's actually looking quite busy now. It all still works, it absolutely still works, but you do have to be conscious with the amount that you throw in at this now, so your eyes don't get overwhelmed. So to create the sentiment, I've used the Birthday XL sentiments. Now each of these words is made up of 2 dies, so you have 6 dies, because obviously you have hugs, happy and birthday. So we have 1 die for each word that actually cuts out the detail of the word, and then you have its matten layer to go underneath. So it took me a little while to work this out actually as to how I was going to cut this. So I've actually cut the shadow from the red to match obviously with the flower. So I will just layer these together quickly for you. Right, so as I said earlier on, I think it'd probably be just a little bit too busy for my eye in particular if I used or added happy in the same style as the birthday there. Okay, I think the birthday works, I think that really fits, but I think the happy would just be a step too far. So that is why I've come in with the tatty words to use on your birthday. And what I'm going to do, I've actually cut on your birthday here from the red so it matches with the flower. But I'm just going to use an element of this. I'm going to chop away birthday because obviously we've die cut that already. So I don't need that section. So we don't need, so I'm just going to use on your birthday and I'm just going to put that in the top there. And I think that works perfectly. The fonts work really nicely. And I think that just gives you a really nice, actually that looks wonky when you put it like that. There we go. That just gives you a really nice mix of fonts on your card, but it still gives you the effect and the words that you want to say. So that's my card for today. So something slightly different, but it's really nice to get back to stenciling. I'd actually missed it, to be honest, but it's so I have another element here, which you could actually, if you wanted, it's so easy to do, but you could actually fussy cut the flowers out and decoupage that on top of here, so you could really go to town. with that also. So yeah, so that's that card there. So hopefully, yeah, you've all stayed with me, which is brilliant. So if you haven't got this, or you've had this in your stash and you haven't used it for a while, hopefully it's a nice introduction for you to go and look for that. Who was that asking? Red Grapefruit from volume 3. Red Grapefruit, yes it is, from volume 3. Absolutely right. And Strawberry Sundae was from volume 1 of the inks. So I've actually got a good mixture across all of the volumes here, because these two are from, actually I tell a lie, that's volume 1, that's volume 1. That's 2, 1. There you go. So these inks are from volume 1, volume 2, and volume 3. There we are. I've actually written on the back to make it useful for me to remember. So thanks so much for joining me today. There is only one live for me this week. What I will do is spend the rest of the week recording videos that will play. They'll play live into the group next week, but they obviously won't be live with me because I'm away for the next 2 weeks now. So I'll be busy for the rest of this week making videos up for you, hopefully also showcasing some of the things that will coming up on Lisa's next show as well, which will be really exciting. If there's anything that you want me to feature on a video also, just drop me a message and I can do my very best to get that sorted for you also. For those of you that may have missed it, I did actually record and put a little cheeky video out on Saturday that created the window box card that Tina made using the Spellbinders dies. So if you wanted to know how to make that, there is actually a video sitting under the live section on YouTube now. You don't have to have the Spellbinders dies to create this. You can use any flower that you may have in your collection, but I go through how you actually construct this card also. So thanks for joining me this afternoon. I shall see you in a few weeks' time, but as I say, I won't leave you high and dry. There will be videos coming out to you next week also. So take care everyone, and I shall speak to you again soon. Take care.